What's good, YouTube? And welcome to the house, back with your regularly scheduled Market Watch. And first we're going to go over some of what's happening within the metagame, and then a deep dive into the collector's market where I have a question for you guys. That being said, let's get into it, starting with Cyber Emergency, up over $40 freaking dollars. I think this was bound to happen with high-profile duels like Deception, Blair, Hunter, and many good duels getting results with this deck, and now we see it topping on the YCS level. It's not just you know what happens, you can beat it. The deck legitimately does very freaking well. And also on this front page with Golden Castle, I'm shocked at how slow the fallout has been considering other forms of Grid Maju is taking events down. So a lot of people went for this initially net decking, but this is an amazing card, and it also is very short printed within this set as we initially discussed. So seeing the prices here still range towards $18 is a bit of a shock that sellers aren't trying to clamor over each other or they're making sales at these rates. Let me know what you guys think of the Golden Castle version of decks. But going through the Cyber Dragon kind of price hikes that happened throughout the previous weeks, Mega Fleet is back down a little bit, but we also know that it's a good tool against Cyber Dragons. It initially spiked and has come back down as buyouts often do. And the same with Nashor, hanging around that $8 mark before it heads towards $9. The entire front page is good though. It's just not the most quantities in the world. I think that this is a very good contender, but it's still in the rogue category. It just kind of mixes in with the Orcus decks, but it's amazing at going second compared to a lot of the decks in the format, and also gets to play going first, which is very rare. Speaking of Orcus, Dengirsu is up even further. We see one motivated seller with 3 copies before it's freaking $29. Very similar over here. $26 before you get those annoying sponsored listings, and then we see $28. I think the reason Dengirsu continuously has been going up is just the revamping into the YCS and regional season for the winter. Usually these prices chill out during the winter, except for the most concentrated meta cards, especially heading towards Christmas. But right now we have regionals upon regionals. People want to play the game, and a lot of people are choosing Orca splash engines into many different decks, such as Cyber Dragons that we see there. So Orcus being its own deck, an engine, there's many ways to go about it, and then Girsu's kind of that expensive piece that used to be $40 and is slowly rising back in price with constantly low quantities on market. Also to note, Avermax keeps peaking up a little. Last time we covered this, I think it was $13.50 or $13 or something like that, and we see it's towards $15 right here despite the quantities. I think that this is amazing as a Cyverse card in general, and as Cyverse locking happens more with their plays, people are going to want to go up into this even in the casual player base, and casual does not equal broke, and they can try to make it work with this card. This is an amazing freaking card. We see combo pieces actually continuously falling in price, and maybe that's thanks to Nibiru overall within the metagame. Nibiru holding a pretty high price towards $8 still for a promo that's new. That's pretty insane thanks to the RNG of the Megatons. But we also see throughout this market watch that combo pieces continuously do fall in price. Now, an engine I was staring at for a little bit is the Invoked engine, and it makes me question, will it only get its one reprint similar to Necros that took way longer, or will Konami eventually look at this and peek at it again, especially considering Raijin, a great instant fusion target, never got a reprint, just Makaba. But overall, it's still a decently affordable rogue engine that can still have the potential to top events. I see one of the DB grinders constantly using a version of like Invoke, Sky Striker, Shadol, and just on top of Dueling Book. I wonder if we'll see results come into the real world with this deck, but right now it does have its consistency issues and struggles. Alistair getting hit really hurts. I think there will be a time in the future though that we see this again, so I'd get stuff that only has one printing sooner than later using my TCG player link in the description down below, costing you nothing extra and supporting the channel directly. Phantasme continues to have its high price, but Pot of Extravagance keeps getting motivated sellers in the lower range, and I think that's just a sign of how few decks that it's actually played in. Borreload also keeps facing the similar thing where we get lower listing and lower listing and lower listing, but not a ton of them. I'm liking this downward trend to make cards more affordable towards players, but these are still very high prices. I wonder what it is though. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. below? Is it just maybe some people got their invites and they're like, all right, I'm not going to play again until Nationals or in the spring, and it's time to unload extravagances, or, Borreload also stuck in more roguelike decks and it being an ultra rare. What do you think the cause is, since this set is so top heavy? And again, the combo piece is slowly falling down. That's not a $15 card anymore. Let's go into the collector's market. We've recently covered a buyout, and when I say recently, about a month or two ago, on Pot of Duality Ultimate Rare, and it's stuck. This buyout has stuck in quantities, haven't filled back the market. We have one seller at 117, and we already have people watching before. It's 130 and 135, etc. I think there's a lot more sticking power to the collector's market and ultimate rares because they get multiple waves of buyouts, and there's this point where eventually they just don't replenish on the market, period, versus the hundreds of eyes on the market. Tenki's another great example of this card that's been bought out time and time again. Used to, you could get this for $15, $20, $30, and just revolved, went into crazy buyouts. Now we have the new Fire Fist support, and people are always looking for generic search cards. Tenki happens to fit that mold of a level 4 or lower beast warrior type monster, so kind of a Rhoda for that. I think that looking at the collector's market, there's definitely an upward trend where it still continues to trickle down until something happens, and we can see that with Goons here. Its lowest is towards 75, where we've seen this get to ridiculous prices like 150. Now, Max C is one of those ones that's banned and is sticking because people like to speculate with the ban list, and if this peeled off, I actually don't know the effect. When Magician of Faith peeled off, the Champion Pack version actually tanked in value for a while, so I don't know if people are going to wait and suddenly the quantities will flood and cause competition, or if this is a true bolstered price that's getting sales. But we see over on eBay, they're all light play until these copies never played, and that's cheaper actually than the going rate for these two, but then it's ridiculous. I think that there's a ceiling on this market that continues to get pushed up slowly by these rounds of buyouts. And I want to ask you guys, where do you think the ceiling stops? Where do you think people say no more with ultimate rares, looking at one of our most costly ultimate rares from the tournament series of packs in Max C? When we look at tournament packs in general, Morphing Jar is kind of the gold standard. We see a PSA 7 one, so that you should just take that out of the case if I was you. But 775, and then we look over here and we see Played, we see probably near mint. Jesus. The listings on this are ridiculous, but we see a card that even if you have the money, you're not really sure what you're getting and what a fair price is. And we see that in several places, such as Dark Magician Girl First Edition, $1,000 freaking dollars. And a while ago, Troll and Toad was paying $800 plus, and I guess they must have got one since their price has gone down to $600 for First Edition. But we see the misprint, the wrong printing original, the art for Dark Paladin, even more. They're buying it for $970, and the regular Dark Paladin. So where does this collector market end versus the actual pack market? I think the pack market keeps showing that it can increase higher for certain prolific cards, and the tournament pack kind of has this different ceiling than the collectability from First Edition LOB, First Edition iconic cards. That First Ed stamp really might just carry it. So I want to hear your thoughts on more so the ceiling of this specific set aside, the tournament pack higher rarities like Book of Moon Super, Morphing Jar Ultra, and then the ultimate rares, because they seem to be way behind because they're so much younger and they still have to face revolving buyouts for their quantities to get anywhere near this. The longevity of Yu-Gi-Oh, of course, is what this heavily depends upon. The game staying alive and collectors not panicking and selling out. And I think that even during a recession, that these cards actually do better. Back in 2008, we were in a recession, and that's one of the most expensive Yu-Gi-Oh formats ever, with Dark Armed and Crush Card and those kinds of cards. And I think part of it is that Yu-Gi-Oh cards are any currency, very similar to gold. You can go turn these into euros, you can go turn these into different values in different places depending on who's buying and where. So when it becomes a worldwide currency as well, people across the world are hunting these cards. It's definitely a different market than I think people anticipate. But again, I'm looking for the ceiling, because when we see this, Does it make you want to go for Pot of Desires, or do you say, no, that'll take years, it'll take too long, I can flip my money X amount of times? Or do you have excess money to where you're like, yeah, I'll sit on a page of those? I think there's very different consumers when looking at investments within Yu-Gi-Oh! And looking for those ceilings. So I want to kind of feel out the entire player base on where they think certain cards will go, how they'll eventually be in a couple of years, and I think it's very important to look at the collector's market in multiple places to try to make these kind of assumptions and decisions when it concerns them. Thank you so much for watching and listening to an old man ramble about cards almost as old as him. Subscribe if you haven't already. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed this collectible conversation. I know a lot of you guys request these more often, and I've been putting them off. And I think there are ways to approach it besides, oh my gosh, this card is $1,000 clickbait. But sometimes they really have gone to $1,000 and kind of deserve the price. It's really weird.